Good afternoon. This is Irene Parker with Timeshare and Resort Developer Accountability. I'm flying solo today without my co-host, Kim Calhoun. She is at home recovering from surgery. And I've always said that I could not do this show without Kim, but fortunately I am able to do the show because of so many people that have been so supportive and so many people that say this show has been not only helped them, but also helped them to communicate with their timeshare resort. So my first guest today is Earl, and Earl is from Nova Scotia. And our topic today is about Mexican timeshares, of which they have been in the news quite frequently lately. So I have with Earl, Lisa, and we also have today with us Kathy. All three of them purchased from the same company, Sunset World Resorts. So I'm going to be giving a little bit of a catch up with what's been in the news lately with Mexico timeshares. And we have a guest on the show from last week, Cheryl, who is gratefully offered to become a TARDA volunteer. And she talked last week about how she was able to obtain 5 timeshares, loved her timeshares in the past, had no problem exiting a timeshare before, had no idea that there are so many timeshares that have no responsible exit. And we'll save that discussion for an upcoming show. But before we start, we're going to start with Kathy. But there's been a couple other things in the news. One thing, I was kind of annoyed because I was reaching out to reporters trying to shed light on active duty military service members that have their security clearances in trouble because of timeshare loan defaults, and all of them except one reported deception. But instead of getting any interest garnered about that, it swept the country that a couple went to Mexico and they had owned a timeshare. It was the Akeo family, and they were arrested and put in a Mexican prison. So, and people didn't hear the back end of that story. Is it was either Michigan or Wisconsin, but a congressman flew down and negotiated their release, but it turned out they were somewhat guilty. So they had purchased a timeshare and paid $116,000, but they turned around and they rented it out for $250,000, but then disputed with American Express the $116,000, and they made money on it. So what the settlement was that they were to pay $116,000 to a nonprofit orphanage. Now, we also have, I could not believe this because I just found out this morning, the U.S. Treasury has sanctioned a Jalisco Mexican cartel for distributing fentanyl and timeshare exit scams in America. And I've gotten some of these calls where they say they're a commodity company. I just had a call where they said Hilton Grand Vacations is being acquired in a hostile takeover by Goldman Sachs. And I'm like, right. So what we've heard from, since January 1, TARDA has heard from 350 families. Of those 350 families, 17 are Mexican timeshare complaints. Of those 17, 9 of them are Sunset World Resorts. But what I just learned from Lisa yesterday when she sent me an email being offered a buyout was that this was incredible because this is the first time we could actually tie the cartel to a specific timeshare. So, but before we get into it's a complicated story. So Kathy's a little bit less complicated, but still bought from the same one. So Kathy, but on this CBS Chicago report, let me just finish this train of thought, is they first reported on this cartel situation in 2022. Since then, they've heard from a dozen more families. And the least amount of money lost was 5,000. The most was 1.3 million for a total of 4.3 million. And they interviewed Joe McGreal, who is a private investigator. And the name of the real estate company that they went with was the Intercontinental Realty, which that website is no longer there. So Kathy, tell us how you first became involved with Sunset World Resort. They have a number of resorts. Fisherman's Village is one, Tres Rios, Hacienda, is it Hacienda? Tres Rios, I think. Tell us how you ended up in a timeshare presentation and what made you stop making payments.
So my husband's family has owned timeshares for years. His dad and mom truly enjoy them. And so my husband and I bought one in St. Croix on our honeymoon. We actually then bought another week in St. Croix. And Sunset was one of our trades. We traded on RCI. We went down there. My mother-in-law came with, my mom came with, and we decided to listen to their presentation. And at the presentation, we explained to them we already had 2 weeks, could barely use it. But if they were willing to take the 1 week, we would be happy to maybe buy a timeshare because it was supposedly going to trade better on RCI, and we thought it'd be just more useful. So we did that. We talked with them for hours. I'm sure you all have sat through their presentations. They showed us how we could actually make money from it. They could rent it out for us. That look at all the people here. If you ever don't want it, you can always tell us. We'll buy it back. We can totally resell it. So we were convinced. My mother-in-law was like, "This is a 2-bedroom. Your St. Croix is only a little hut that it was, and this will trade much better for you. You'll get much more opportunity." So we went ahead. We bought it. This was probably 2007, 2008, 2006, maybe somewhere in that time frame. And for years we had it. It was a biannual, so it was every other year. We paid the maintenance fees. We had paid pretty much cash. I think we put it on a credit card and then paid off that credit card. So we had no debt to them other than the maintenance fees. Well, 2018 came around and we just weren't having luck getting anything on RCI. It wasn't trading for anything. Didn't see a reason to own it. And I was like, well, they said they'd buy it. First of all, I was like, well, they'll rent it out. Let's see if we can make some money. So in 2018, I asked them to rent it out for us. I don't know who told you that, but we don't do that, was their response. And I was just like, no, you said that. And she's like, check your contract. Nowhere do we say we will rent it out. So I did. Of course, it's nowhere in the fine print. And my gosh, their contracts are pages long. So that was my first experience. And then the next time it was due, 2020, I'm like, this is it. I just want to sell it back. So it was COVID. I was like, I just want to sell it back. We have no reason to buy it. I was like, no, you said you would. Nope, we don't need it. We can't sell it. So you can sell it on the open market. And of course, on the open market, there's no money to be had there. You can't sell it on the open market. And so I just started arguing with them, and it went back and forth for years. I sent them so many letters, sent them emails, asked to speak to someone higher up. So I stopped paying in 2020. I think 2022 or 2023 was the last I heard from them. And this year we got sent to collections. All of a sudden, my husband and I both started getting phone calls, and I'm like, we don't owe anybody anything. And we're like, oh, but the timeshare. So sure enough, I did my research, found out Meridian Financial is connected to Timeshares. Sure enough, I went on Facebook, found the group, found TARDA, researched it, and yes, it is now on both of our credit reports. They have stopped calling us, but it is on our credit report. And it actually dinged my husband 80 points. He was at like 780, and I just looked it up today, and he's at 682. So he went from an extremely high score to a very fair score now.
And let me interrupt you there, because as a result of Cheryl being on the show, stuck with 5 timeshares, people have always said, and I just posted on Facebook yesterday, they don't report maintenance fees. Well, it used to be that they didn't. Very few HOAs had relationships with credit reporting agency. But Jake Burku on our board, who was on the show with Cheryl last week, checked into it and said back in 2016, there are these companies that approached HOAs saying that they could be the middle person between providing that information to the credit reporting agency, and that has shown that delinquencies drop 30%. So every time you think the timeshare can't get any worse, it does. And Meridian Financial has sent out a blast of letters. We've had several people, and one of the reasons is you stopped paying in 2020, you said?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you had no loan. And so there's a statute of limitations. Usually it's 4 to 6 years where a company cannot sue on the debt. They can still pursue it, but that's probably what's prompting this flurry of letters that have gone out. So now, sticking with Sunset World Resorts, let's go ahead. Oh, and there was another family that there was another family that said the same sales center, if we will not be able to use our weeks, we can rent it out to help with maintenance fees. He wrote things down showing us how much money we would make if we rent weeks, which would be deposited to my account. And my husband asked for a copy of those figures, and he said he would email it. And of course, he never did. So, Lisa, does any of this sound familiar to you? And let's hear your Sunset World Resort experience.
Hello. Yes, actually, all of it. And it brought a lot of things back to me that as I was trying to document everything that we had gone through it was 2021, as part of the sale, I realized I forgot things like the renting it out and that income being deposited directly into the account, and other things that we were promised that, oh yeah, and that they would buy it back after a year. None of that. So we ended up there, I think, as I was looking for just a nice spot for us to vacation, and found, maybe through like Expedia or something, found Hacienda Tres Rios and didn't really realize that it was part of a timeshare, and that we would be attending this presentation while we were there, which, my husband said a billion times. Just remember, when we get in there, it's no, no, no. And so, and he will be the first one to tell you very quickly. And still, when we were in there, he was saying, no, no, no. And the way he tells the story, I said, well, so that probably mixed with a fair amount of champagne and hype in, they would pull us out of the room from time to time after the tour and say, all right, because we were pretty diligent for a bit. And then they showed us La Herencia and the concierge, and And then, the suites with the rooftop pool. And then they said, bring your kids on this last part of the tour, right? And so, yep, that and still more champagne. I was in, and so then they promised a dream week vacation for there were 6 of us on the trip, or 6 of us as the root family, and they promised a trip for 6. My husband and his mother they're Norwegian, always wanted to go to Norway. He said, we'll make it Norway. That's an option. Yeah, it wasn't an option. But anyway, so we signed, and however, my husband was, it got both of our signatures in the end, right? So he must have agreed to something, and he did eventually agree because they sold it as an investment. It was not a timeshare; it was a fractional ownership, and we were buying the initial member offering, the IMO, which was, and we had 33, and the lower your number, the better off you were, right? Because those were going to be the first to be constructed, the first to sell, and it was going to be an amazing deal. And then they kept upping our option weeks, which, because it wasn't a timeshare, they were just free weeks, right? And because what we were really buying was this IMO, which still, I believe, hasn't even started construction.
Well, and the word offering makes it sound like an investment, like a public offering. But I believe you said that they told you were buying 25% of like a home. Did that mean there were going to be like 4 units
Yes.
in a house that was to be built?
Yes.
Yes. And and that was in March of 2021, and you paid $29,980, and you stopped. So you defaulted on the loan payments as well.
Yeah. So I don't believe that well, maybe that's right. Maybe we paid 29,000. I need to go back and take a look and see the difference between and maybe it was 39 that was the original agreement, and then 10 was the down. I need to do a better job of itemizing that. But we did stop paying probably about 2 years ago because there were so many disputes and so many untruths, and I couldn't get, like the dream week and the cruise. And I think there was, and then of course the rentals and all of that. None of that came to fruition, and I couldn't get responses from them. Or then after like a year and a half, they said, well, actually, we need to issue you a certificate for the dream week, and we need to know exactly when you're going to go. And that expired, actually. Like, what? So then I kept sending them. We actually, through all of this, we weren't 100% disgruntled until about a year, maybe a little after that, into it. We went back and didn't realize that we were going to be forced into another presentation when we went back for the visit. And so we were kind of unprepared. And then they said it would benefit you to upgrade because the construction is going to be starting. And the first thing we're going to do, now there's a higher market because of the Disney properties there. There's a higher market for the sale of these IMOs. And so it would automatically pay $100,000 if just your unit sells, and then $200,000 upon the sale of the entire home or IMO. So a lot of stuff happened during that. We got out of the upgrade.
How did you do that?
Really a lot of fighting. And the salesman was a different salesman. The salesman there was very American this time, but also told us a lot of things that were not documented, like the sale that I mentioned. I said, that's going to be part of this upgrade contract, right? Yep. Well, it wasn't there. And then nobody would return my calls. Like we were supposed to have a call like 2 days after we left. Nobody's calling.
So did you cancel during the 5-day rescission period?
No, but they knew I had enough documentation that was happening during that period. I think that, and we raised so much heck that I think that they felt that it wasn't going to go well.
What documentation did you have?
Well, we were communicating with them via email mostly and text messages with the salesman, and I turned all of that over to the sales manager. And then we had been calling because I couldn't get return calls. The sales department was supposed to be calling us, like I said, with follow-up 2 days out, and nobody was calling back. That we escalated it to Sunset. They were saying they couldn't help us. I think I just made their lives so miserable that they said, well, we already have them on the first contract still, right? And so, and then part of what I said to them was, in this initial agreement, you told us we didn't want to finance it. And you said that we could, as soon as we got home back to the States, that we could take a mortgage out on the property to have, a good interest rate and all of that. And then again, an investment. So, and obviously, I got home and I made several phone calls and they said, absolutely not. We cannot offer you a mortgage on a Mexican property. And that's when they're saying to me, is it a timeshare? No, no, it's a fractional ownership. So, yeah.
And then I was flabbergasted. You sent me an email yesterday. And how long was it from, okay, I know the first sale was March of 2021. When was the upgrade?
The upgrade, I believe, was 2023.
2023. Okay, and then you received a call.
Yeah, my husband was receiving the calls from an investor or an investor representative from New York, supposedly, that indicated that they had buyers that were interested in our Tres Rios IMO. There was a big market for the IMO.
And they said IMO.
They did. And they even knew that we had like 33 or something. And so, and I'm saying to my husband, how do they have all this information? It's not like public record because it's not a US property, right? And so I started to become suspicious when I said, okay, give me your website information. And we probably had, my husband maybe took 2 calls from them and basically said, I'm going to have you talk to my wife. And so then I probably had 3 different calls from them and said, oh, I thought you were going to email me some information. And okay, what's the name of your company again? And getting the email address from them, super generic, and it didn't feel right. And then at some point during these calls, they're giving me some really vanilla kind of names, and I've talked to 2 individuals there with very strong Mexican accents, and like, I just feel like this doesn't really make sense. And I don't understand why they're telling me my IMO is highly valuable because it's so low, right? My number's so low. And so that the they would be these buyers would be willing to pay me 102,000 or something, let's say. I'm like, I don't understand why they'd pay me for all of that when it hasn't started construction and we didn't even pay that much for this. I don't really understand. So I started looking up this Appleberry Realty or whatever, and it just looks like a general website. Like if you were an independent realtor, maybe you could get a website and they might also have a call center that might like an operator kind of thing, right?
Well, I actually called them this morning and the recorded message was the wireless customer that you have contacted cannot talk to you right now. I mean, what kind of business is that? But what was really compelling was that one of the links for Appleberry Realty was from a malware company listing them as an example of a phishing site with a P. So this isn't the best way to start a clandestine investigation, talking about it on Pod TV in 123 countries. But what we need to have Kathy and Lisa, and there were two other people bought from Sunset Fishermen that wanted to be on the show but could not because of some things that came up. But I know, Earl, you Profeco is the Mexican Consumer Protection Agency. And we have a volunteer that can translate your reports into Spanish if he's available. And so Profeco, they tend to focus, it seems, on the attempt to dodge the rescission period. They're not allowed to serve you alcohol. So if they served you alcohol, that was wrong. But when one person going to Profeco is one thing, but if we can get all 9 people to file with Profeco, I am reaching out to the private investigator from the CBS Chicago News Report. And we had on the show John Cushman, whose business identity was stolen. And after that experience some years ago, he started what I like to call Timeshare. And it is an international wire fraud database. And he has done extensive research with a much detail. As soon as our show is over, I'm going to go look at that website and see if this outfit is on there. As I said, on CBS, they called them Intercontinental Realty. But now, Earl, you go ahead and take us from how and thank you for your service. You have, your service dog Raven is somewhere roaming around. I saw him
Right
earlier.
beside me.
And you worked for the Canadian Armed Police Force?
I worked for Canadian Armed Forces as a military police officer for almost 19 years. I was releasing medically in 2014, so my wife, who's upstairs with her service dog in training, Ruby, decided before we had the service dogs that we would, on the verbal approach from friends of ours who had a ticket for, here's a reduced rate, go to Tres Rios. Here a spiel. If you don't like it, you don't have to buy. And so we went, and they marketed it as a little piece of heaven on earth. You'll save so much money by coming down here every year, not having to do, vacation planning. Unfortunately, you can get your week stay cheaper on Expedia than you can buying the timeshare. So in 2014, we bought our first timeshare block from Tres Rios, Club Sunset, and I'm reading here, in 2015 we went back and we were upsold because we were told that there was something wrong with the contract. Head office for Sunset was very upset that we got a couple of perks that we weren't supposed to, supposedly by Jonathan, the salesperson. And so if we didn't buy up in 2015, we were going to lose perks and have our initial contract messed over with. So we sort of panicked and we bought up again. And so continued to make payments. In 2016, in April, we went back and we were threatened by the resort management that if we didn't purchase into what's called the real estate group at a premium cost for certificates that, and I'm reading this off of an email that I've just sent to you, Irene. We didn't purchase into the real estate group at a premium cost. The certificates we received in 2024 and 2014, would be removed from our contract once again. That real estate group basically is, if I said earlier, if you didn't want to use it, you couldn't use it, they would buy it back at a 25%. And I have that in here. The real estate fee for them to market it would be a 25%. But they also drove down, and I have a copy. Unlike some of the other people, I kept a copy of the worksheet that they had given us and had wrote everything out and said, this works out here and this is what your value is. And even Chad, who was our salesperson, wrote his name down on that document, of which I have in the stack of shameful documents. And so then in 2018, we went back, and it was a nightmare. We had one of my triggers for my post-traumatic stress disorder is the smell of must and mold due to one of the taskings that I had for a period of time. And so I walked into the room. We had the double room suite, and I took my sister and my niece with us, and with Faith and I. And what we did was I walked into our quadrant of the room and immediately started to choke up. There was black mold, heavy spores on the ceiling in the entire shower area, and they had painted over top of it. And so they came and sprayed it with bleach, pure bleach, and wiped it down and said, there you go, it's all fixed. And so, but they didn't move us to another room. So we went to our meeting. There was a female, I can't remember her name. And she basically said, okay, great, here's what you have. And like any good cop, I've written it down on the back of my hand off another email. I have 27 corporate weeks. This, I think, is what Lisa was talking about, these extra weeks. With the upselling, you get extra corporate weeks, and you can use them and pay your membership fee per week to go down. We have one normal book, and we have one other week on top of that as an additional. And with RCI, we had 2 exchange weeks. And I have the name of the person written down here, and I don't know if I can give it to you privately. I think I sent it to you just now, Irene.
Do you
I'll
have
give you
the
his
name?
first name was Miguel.
Did they give
Miguel
you the
came
name?
from.
Question, did they give you the name of the real estate group?
No, they just said it was their Club Sunset Real Estate Group. That was it. You're now part of the owners group within Club Sunset.
Yes.
So another lie, which we found out, right? And so what ended up happening was I had mentioned to them and said, listen, you guys sold us this last time. We were here in 16. I couldn't make it in 17 because I had life-saving surgery, and we couldn't travel in 17. So we came down in 18, ran into the problem with the mold. And so when we're talking with a female, very tall, very slender build, can't remember her name now, but I can see her face. She said, do you want to buy? I'm bringing you in to buy into. And I went, oh, another upsell. And she said, well, yes, this is to buy availability into the marina at Tres Rios. Well, the marina that was supposed to be built in 2015-16 still wasn't built in 18. And so I said, no, I'm here to look at selling this back to you guys. And she looked at me like we had 3 heads on our shoulders and said, what are you talking about? We don't buy timeshares back. We sell them. And so she took me to an individual who was a customer service manager. This Miguel came from Fisherman's Village because they had problems with the Canadian manager that was out of Edmonton, who sold us our stuff plus their family. in 2015 and again in 16, and they had fired them supposedly. And so this Miguel says to me, he says, I thought we had everybody looked after. Obviously we missed you because you weren't here last year. So we had some problems. Club Sunset or Sunset head office is going to give you a call. They're going to try to figure this out. Never got the phone call, but I did put in, as you said, with Perfecto, a complaint with them. And after my complaint was all heard and all the documentation, our contract for Tres Rios and La Herencia 2 was submitted to them. Club Sunset came out and said, you don't have a membership with us at this location. You bought from Royal Sunset. You didn't buy from Tres Rios. And on the documentation, it says clearly Tres Rios. And so I don't know how they got Perfecto, an agency of the government for consumer protection, to believe their lie that our contract and timeshare purchase and the 2 upgrades was actually at Tres Rios. They were trying to say a club at Royal Sunset. And so this is how this all ties together. In the end, Club Sunset and Tres Rios La Herencia 2 came out and basically has said, we will never have to pay in writing again for our 5-year anniversary remodeling fee, which I have no idea what it is. At one time, it was $5,000 US. And we only will have to pay for our maintenance fees if we use the weeks. But we've never been able to rent. We've never been able to sell. We were told that this was an investment if we moved into the real estate group, of which I highly doubt that even exists.
So, and then did you ever, I'm seeing if I can get Cheryl back. Cheryl, can you hear us? No, she's frozen out. Okay, we lost Cheryl. So now, okay, did you ever have a hearing with Profeco?
I was never present for anything. I just submitted my documentation, and they must have had one in Mexico because I didn't travel. I won't travel to Mexico because what I'm afraid of, and what we're afraid of, is that if we get down there, there will be plainclothes officers present in the lobby or dressed as civilians on tourism. And as soon as we go to register with concierge for the limit group that we have, that they'll just say, okay, great, they're in default for X amount of thousands of dollars, even though we have an agreement with them not to be charged for that amount. And we will be the next ones that you will hear about in a Mexican prison.
Well,
And
and
so
that
we will
wouldn't
not go
happen.
down.
That wouldn't happen in the United States because it's civil, not criminal. But now,
Yep.
what year was your last purchase, and when did you get the call from your new Tennessee?
Okay, so our last purchases were in 2000, according to this, 2016. And then your New Tennessee, interestingly enough, after we left in 2018, when we departed there and got home, the lady that we were talking, and I'll use that term loosely, the lady that we were talking with at the resort that took us over to this Miguel gentleman, she seemed to be very upset. And as far as I know from talking with other people that went down to that same resort, she was no longer there. She either quit or was terminated and probably went to another resort. But we feel that as it was within weeks, Irene, within weeks that we got the phone call for, do you want to sell? Here's the price. It's 600. I think it was $680,000. This company is looking. There's United Arab Emirates entity that's looking at buying a block of these from La Herencia, and so we want to buy yours included in that block. Here's what your total value would be worth. And we can start this. So that was within weeks of us showing a very great disdainment for the fact that we were ripped off in 2016 by going into the real estate group. So I know in my heart that there was something behind the scenes with Sunset and you have just alluded to maybe something, in your last dealings the last couple of weeks, where it's tied to a cartel. And so we believed that when your New Tennessee and Title II Investments, their brokerage, which broke on the media as being a scam through the newscast that you shared, we figured that there was something. These guys know too much information, much like Lisa had said. These guys know too much information about the contract, about everything. Somebody inside is feeding somebody information. And
Yeah,
so
and Lisa was
basically
she,
we
Lisa,
got scammed
Lisa
for
was even more specific than yours was, but and I want to just stop a minute because the dollar amount that we're talking is, I was thinking it was 52,000 US dollars,
it
but
is.
it's Canadian dollars is about 70,000 with
Yep.
with Club Sunset, with Sunset World Resorts, and
Mhm.
another 70,000
Yep.
you lost to the cartel. And your wife was in banking,
Yep.
and I remember Faith, when you were on the show, prior show we had a couple years ago, that she actually had someone from her bank who speaks Spanish talk to. And before we go farther, let me this is the MFG. This is one of them. This not might not be yours, but you can see how professional they are. They said
Yep.
they're commodity traders. And then we
That
also
one's
have
ours.
that this one, was this the actual document?
That was the latest one that we had about a year and a bit ago. And the company was out of Texas, I believe. I reported this company to John, not the bank name, but the bank name. When I started looking at the two or three of them, the bank name, the color is different. The color is off on their logo, plus the font is different. And so that's how I perceive. So when I wrote to and sent the emails to this Banjo, whatever bank, that went directly to their security team, and they said, no, somebody is using our information fraudulently. Do not sign anything. In the first one, they wanted me to, they were actually wanted us to take out a second mortgage on our home to pay for all of the hidden fees, which are illegal for selling our timeshare. And they had a bank in the Dominican, supposedly, that was going to front the money for our second mortgage on our home, which meant that we would have probably lost our home, in addition to everything else. They were very thorough, but like I say, they just knew too much information.
Now, you didn't pay them $70,000 all at once. What was the process that accumulated to that much money?
It was, it
Who
started
first
out
who
as we
first
need this
contacted
as
you?
a retainer,
Okay.
as you would say in legal terms. Then it came out to a hidden tax for the sale of the property that the Mexican government wanted to cash in on. Then the bank wanted a dollar for dollar amount to cover it in case it was a scam. I believe you probably 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago now, we gave you that breakdown of the individual steps and how much was transferred and what dates and who it was transferred to. Their documentation, some of it looked very clear, and it had Mexican supposedly signatures on it of officials. So you get the minister of so and so for this ministry and stuff, but none of that was real. They even had law firms money down as $5,000 here, $10,000 there, 5,000 more here. The last straw was, hey, listen, we can't pay you guys anymore because you've bled us to death, and so that was at the $70,000 Canadian mark, and like I say, it's just, yeah, when you get in and you want to sell so badly to get out, then you think that everything is just legitimate and here's my opportunity and we're going to do this. And so, yeah, it takes its toll. Like, I don't know how many other people have succumbed to, obviously there's more people that have, because when I talk to the FBI agent that was dealing with our case for Title II investments and your new Tennessee out of the state of Tennessee, he basically told us that we were part of at that time, a $3.5 million scam. And at the same time, we were able to track back through friends of mine that do computer security. We were able to track back to almost the block where in Mexico City some of this information was coming from, and as well as at Cancun. So we knew that this was generated from Cancun and Mexico City, and but that's as far as they could get. They could pinpoint the block that they were in.
And before, Lisa's going to have to leave us in about 5 minutes, but Kathy and Lisa, are you willing to go ahead and file a complaint with Profeco? I can give you the instructions on how to do
You had
that.
already done that, and I've already filed it. I have not heard anything.
Okay. And Lisa, will you have time to file with Profeco?
I will. Yeah.
Okay, great. And we have these other people that wanted to be on the show today that couldn't. This one person did resolve their dispute with Sunset World and Meridian. So they had a loan, and their complaint was that they were told that what they were buying was all inclusive, but then they learned that it was $1,000 per person. So traveling with a family of 6 would have been, $6,000 to stay there.
Right.
And then we had Shelley in North Carolina. She purchased 20 years ago with Sunset Fisherman, and the presentation was the whole day without food. The sales agents assured us that if we couldn't use it, we could rent it. And they also said we could give it back after we paid off our loan, which we did.
Yep.
So they did not have a loan, and they never used the membership in 20 years. And now they have medical challenges, so she can no longer fly, and they stopped paying maintenance fees in 2020. Now, I edited a book for someone who's a Mexican expert, and he would say, you can default on a loan, on a maintenance fee, nothing ever happens. But in the US and in Mexico, apparently, what our board member, as I said from last week, Jake, came on the show, and when he heard about all these credit score droppings, he looked into it. And in 2016, some companies approached HOAs and said, we can be your middle person to provide this information to the credit reporting agencies, because a lot of the HOAs did not have relationships with credit reporting agencies. So now, and they said, if we do this for you, it's been shown that delinquencies drop 30%. But instead of caving in, do they really expect you to pay maintenance fees for the rest of your life on a product that you're not going to use? So they received a collection notice from Meridian in June of 2025, just like you folks have. And then we also had Colleen. She reached out to me in 2019. And now in 2025, she received a collection notice, and they said you could rent it out during Formula One, and you would be able to make your investment back. We had someone else who wanted to be on the show today, Dina in Arkansas. She had a family matter come up and couldn't be with us today. They bought from Royal Elite Vacation Club Sandos Resorts, and she stopped payments in April of 2025 because she couldn't make reservations. So Lisa, I know that you have to go. Do you have any, listening to Earl, I feel so bad. Do you have any closing comments you'd like to leave with us today?
No, I don't think so. I mean, it all sounds so familiar, right? And like I said, jogging my memory on some things that I probably tried to repress. but I was thinking about this. There's a Quorum Credit Union. And I don't know if any of you have ever heard of them or have experienced Jack Foster at all, who was part of the real estate group. But this Quorum Credit Union, we never could figure out how they were associated. But we were getting some statements from in my husband's name, and we couldn't figure out. We think it was part of the original contract and not the upgrade, but we couldn't figure out. We didn't have an account there, and so
what happened? I can tell you what happened. In 2016, Roddy Boy is a very sophisticated financial reporter. The Southern Investigative Foundation, SURF, I think was the acronym, but he did an article called Diamond Resorts and its perpetual mortgage machine, and they sell their paper. So that, like they don't finance it, except you're paying your loan payments to the resort, whether it's in America or in Mexico, but they're not a lending institution. Quorum back then, I haven't heard that name since 2016. They write low credit score people. So they write higher risk borrowers, the papers for that.
So interestingly, we had a couple of our payments all of a sudden were coming out with the Quorum name. And I reached out to the finance team at Tres Rios and said, we don't know who these people are. And actually, when we call them, they don't know who we are. Although we were getting like a statement from them, but there was no account in our name. So that makes sense what you're saying, that they were backing that, and they didn't. The only options they gave us that they said were available for financing was to get a mortgage or go through, and they didn't run our credit or anything. They just said you would either go through us or get a mortgage at home. So I couldn't figure out where that came from, but that makes sense based on the fact that Quorum said they really didn't know who we are, and we still don't know how we were getting statements from them about a savings account that we didn't initiate.
Now, Lisa and Kathy, are you hearing from just Meridian, or are you hearing from Sunset World Resorts at all anymore?
Have not heard from Sunset World Resorts since 2023, I believe. Just Meridian.
So I don't know what is happening with annual maintenance fees.
Well,
I do know that there's at least 1 year of annual maintenance fees since we stopped making payments that's sitting at Meridian.
Well, and as Jake was told Cheryl on the show last week, is that once the debt has been turned over to the collection agency, it's gone from Sunset World Resorts, and they used to. The Mexican, the person that I edited the book for said that it never hits your credit report, whether it's a loan or a maintenance fee. But then an attorney said that if they have a U.S. office, then that U.S. office will have the relationship with the credit reporting agency. And I think that members supporting members is really powerful. Do you feel, I know Cheryl's probably feeling a little bit better hearing that she doesn't have anything out, no outlay. She obtained 5 timeshare resorts. Just give us I know you were on last week, but some people are hearing this for the first time. You really liked timeshare, and you had no problems getting released from a prior one, so you thought it was no problem to get 5 now, and
Yeah,
you
I
have
mean, I was involved with timeshares from 1980 until I had to let mine go in 2012. And I used to say it was the best thing I ever did in my life. And it was. And I came across this woman on Facebook, and she was just giving timeshares away. I never went to a presentation ever, but I did them for Blue Green for 3 months, but it was very unethical. The only reason I was successful with Blue Green is I told them I had a timeshare for 22 years. And it was I never had a bad vacation in 22 years. And I went all over the world. I went everywhere. And that's a seller. That's all you have to say. I
well,
didn't use their ethical, game playing and number playing. It was very simple. But
was
then
2025 the first year that you did not make maintenance fee payments?
20, well, I had 7, and I got rid of 2 on my own. They took them back at no
So, but
cost.
was 2025, was that the first year that you stopped making loan payments? I mean,
20,
maintenance fee payments?
2024. And the only one that's hit my credit, I think I told you that out of the 5, most of them are actually somewhat reasonable, and I'm working with them. I'm trying to negotiate things for different reasons, and I have different strategies. I'm not a lawyer, but I went to law school, and I'm not done. And there's only one that's really, really difficult, and that's the one that's A Place at the Beach 3.
A Place at the Beach. Yeah.
And they're the
Yeah.
only ones that they want 3 years of maintenance fees, which is over $3,000, and they hit my credit. And my credit went down, I'd say, close to 100 points.
And you shared with us that you had 2 car accidents that have left you, financially. And did none of them respond to medical hardship?
Well, the car accidents you can't tell by looking at me. I can walk, I can bend over, I can do things, but I'm not supposed to fly. I'm not supposed to sit for long periods of time because I have 3 bad back injuries. And the last time I flew was to Portugal 3 years ago, and I end up getting what's called dropped foot syndrome, where you can't feel your lower back. I don't know if you know, your lower back controls your feet. And if you sit for 2 long periods of time, which Portugal was like, 14 hours, it affects your discs, and then your foot gives out, and I had no use of my right foot for the 3rd time for about 6 months, and you end up on crutches. The big risk is, and the doctor said, I wouldn't tell you not to fly, but I will tell you that if it happens again, you may not recover.
So you bought these timeshares thinking that you could drive to them.
I didn't buy them. They were given to me.
I mean, you acquired them because they were within driving distance.
Yeah. I mean, I've driven all over the country, and one's in Virginia, one's in North Carolina. You're talking about a few hour ride, but I'm not supposed to do that right now because I run the risk of getting dropped foot syndrome. And I've told and I've got another letter going out this week, a hardship letter, and I've got MRIs, I've got records proving the disabilities. In fact, I just had another MRI done, probably about a month ago, and my back is really bad, and they have me on a couple of pills because I'm not going to do surgery.
And these are fluid situations. So Kathy Earl we had a show called Timeshare Talks with John Raymond was our host. And then he had, a family a tragedy in his family. So we discontinued that show. But Earl was on, I think it was like 3 years ago on our show. So Kathy, you might be back in a year or 2 from now supporting other people. And, it's good to hear how how people are progressing. And Earl, the fact that you've gone through this horror for so long and you're still here with us today to support Kathy and Lisa, it means a lot to me, and I know it means a lot to Kathy as well. And so we only have another half a minute. Earl, you have any parting comments you would like to make?
Just like I say, if you blame yourself, don't, because as a law enforcement officer, I fell prey to the same smooth, slick, crooked deception, and I knew better. It just
Well,
everything was done so well.
before we end, there's a book called Outsmarting the Scam Artist by Doug Shadell with AARP staff writer. He said nobody is smart enough to smarten a scam artist. He's heard
Nope.
from judges and JAG officers and all kinds of people, lawyers, doctors, what have you. Well, we're about out of time, and I believe we're going to be ending the show. I don't know if Mark, they're trying to juggle a number of shows right now, so I'm going to see what happens when I click this end stream. And this is the first time or the second time I've been in the driver's seat. So here comes Mark right now. I think he's going to maybe close us out. He's our producer. Thank you, Mark, for being behind. Do you have any questions about the backdrop for Earl?
No problem at all. Like I said, he's got a great backdrop. I see we got a bird over there and some other things going on over there as well. So definitely some great backdrops in that sense. And all along those lines, but y'all have been having a very in-depth conversation, and I've been in the background listening. And another great show where you're definitely helping to rescue these people out of some very bad situations and all along those lines. So, as you know, I'm a big fan of this show. And I was actually just talking about the merits of this show on some of our other shows as well. So as far as I'm concerned, this is definitely one of our top advocacy shows, and you're doing a great job and all along those lines. So I'm going to hit the end stream, and we're going to end the show, but some more great guests and some more great conversation. And once again, you've done another great job, Irene, and we look forward to seeing what TARDA will be doing on the next week's show. And I know that there'll be people that will be catching this show in the reruns as well as on the showcases as well. So definitely looking forward to hearing folks and their reactions to this great work that you're doing.
Irene, I just have to add one more thing, if you don't mind, and I'll be real quick.
No, we have to end it because we only have an hour airtime.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Mark.
No problem.
Thanks, Irene.